In the fall of 2002, fear had a new name. Across Washington, D.C., ordinary people doing ordinary things, pumping gas, shopping, walking to school, suddenly dropped to the ground, victims of a silent killer no one could see and no one could predict. The city wasn't just scared, it was frozen. Police were overwhelmed. Witnesses saw nothing. There were no patterns, no motives, no suspects, just one fact: the attacks were precise, cold, and terrifying. What the world didn't know was that this nightmare wasn't the work of a trained military unit or a foreign terrorist group. It was a 41-year-old man and a 17-year-old boy hiding inside the trunk of a car. A homemade sniper nest, a single bullet, and a plan more twisted than anyone imagined. This is the story of the Beltway snipers, how they planned it, how they carried it out, and how one tiny mistake finally brought their reign of terror to an end. John Allen Mohammed was born on December 31, 1960, in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. People who knew him as a young man described him as warm, charming, even friendly. But everything changed when he joined the United States Army. Mohammed served as a combat engineer during the First Gulf War in 1990 to 1991. Those who saw him after the war said he returned a completely different person. His soft personality hardened, his eyes colder, and his temper sharper. He began physically abusing his wife more and more often. Oddly enough, the only people he remained gentle with were his children. He adored them, never raised his voice, never laid a hand on them. But in September 2001, everything fell apart. A judge awarded full custody of his kids to his wife. Mohammed was furious, devastated. And then came Malvo. Malvo grew up in Jamaica in a chaotic, unstable home. His parents were known to be neglectful and abusive. So when Mohammed met him and his mother and offered for $3,000 to help them come to America, Malvo saw him as a savior, a father figure. But if Mohammed showed warmth to his biological children, he didn't show it to Malvo. Instead, he shaped him. He made Malvo watch The Matrix, telling him it symbolized a revolution that was coming. He had him play sniper video games to numb him to violence. He trained him in firearms, discipline, stealth. One classmate said Malvo barely spoke to anyone, but during a discussion of the movie pattern, someone asked about the weapons used in the film. Malvo raised his hand and listed every weapon, its name, and its technical details perfectly. Mohammed wasn't raising a teenager. He was building a soldier. On February 16, 2002, 2 days before Malvo's 17th birthday, Mohammed gave him his first order. Kill Issa Nichols. Nichols was a friend of Mohammed's ex-wife, and she had testified in the custody case that took his children away. But when Malvo knocked on the door, Nichols wasn't home. Her niece, 21-year-old Nicole Cook, answered instead. Malvo shot her in the face. She died instantly. She had only been visiting her aunt that day. Wrong place, wrong time. It was the start of a killing spree. Over the next several months, Mohammed and Malvo committed burglaries, robberies, and killings across multiple states. Each crime was a step toward a bigger plan. Bring Washington, D.C. to its knees. On October 3, 2002, at 7:41 in the morning, 39-year-old landscaper James Buchanan was mowing a lawn. A single shot hit him. He stumbled toward a repair shop, bleeding heavily, and collapsed. Within 2 hours, 3 more people were dead. By 9:20 in the evening that same night, a 5th person was killed. 5 murders, 1 day, no clues. This wasn't a normal crime. This was terror. The next day, the shootings continued. Parents were terrified. Children weren't allowed near windows at school or outside for recess. Field trips were cancelled. People crouched while pumping gas, praying they wouldn't feel a bullet. Gas stations lost money because people refused to stop there. Investigators had no leads. And the shooters were nowhere to be found. From time to time, police arrested someone with a similar vehicle or a suspicious background, but every time, the evidence collapsed. Meanwhile, the killers were mocking authorities. Malvo repeatedly called the police anonymously, taunting them. He and Mohammed sent letters accusing investigators of letting people die because they didn't pay the $10 million ransom they demanded. But the breakthrough came from across the country in Washington state. A Gulf War veteran named Robert Holmes hadn't seen Mohammed in his neighborhood for a while. He knew Mohammed's ex-wife had moved to the D.C. area. He knew Mohammed had military training, and he knew Mohammed had been looking for his kids. Holmes contacted the FBI and said what no one else had. "Check Mohammed, he's capable of this." That tip changed everything. On October 22, 2002, bus driver Conrad Johnson was setting up his bus for the morning run. He was shot and killed, the final known victim. By the next day, police named Mohammed and Malvo as the prime suspects. They released the description of Mohammed's car: a blue Chevrolet Caprice, New Jersey plates NDA 21Z. A television reporter spotted a matching vehicle. At 3:15 in the morning on October 24, 2002, officers quietly surrounded the car. Mohammed and Malvo were asleep in the front seats. Within minutes, they were in handcuffs. At first, neither spoke, but after police offered Malvo 2 vegetarian burgers, he finally began talking. That confession led to both of their convictions. The most shocking part of the investigation was the car itself. Mohammed had turned the trunk into a sniper hideout. The backseat folded up, giving access to the trunk. Inside was a small hole near the license plate, just wide enough for a rifle. The shooter would lie inside, completely hidden, able to breathe and aim, while the victim never saw anything. It was simple. It was creative. And it was terrifyingly effective. Why Washington, D.C.? Why the randomness? Malvo said Mohammed believed he was starting a political revolution. But investigators discovered a more personal motive. Mohammed planned to eventually kill his ex-wife, hidden inside a long list of anonymous sniper victims, so he could regain custody of his children. If not for Robert Holmes identifying him, he might have succeeded. Both were found guilty. Malvo, a minor at the time, was spared the death penalty. He received life without parole, though later law changes allowed him to request a future parole hearing. Mohammed, still claiming innocence, was sentenced to death. He eventually stopped appealing and was executed on November 10, 2009. Witnesses said he died with a slight smile on his face.